Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku was the reincarnation of Okarun. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The diagnosis and the guest. The air in the doctor's office smelled of antiseptic and lemon-scented floor wax, a combination that would forever be associated in Izuku Midoriya's mind with the end of his world. He was 4 years old. His legs swung back and forth, unable to touch the linoleum floor, his red sneakers scuffing the air. Beside him, his mother Inko twisted the strap of her purse with white-knuckled anxiety. Izuku clutched his All Might action figure, the Silver Age version, so tightly the plastic ridges dug into his palm. "You should probably give it up," the doctor said. The words hung in the air, heavy and blunt. The doctor, a man with a bushy mustache and goggles that magnified his eyes to bulbous proportions, leaned back in his chair. He tapped a pen against an X-ray film displayed on the light box. "You see this?" The doctor continued, pointing to the skeletal image of a foot. "It's a joint in the pinky toe. Usually, by this age, this joint is missing in those who have evolved quirks. It's the primary indicator of the next stage of human evolution. Izuku here, he has 2 joints. It's a rare throwback. He's quirkless." The world shattered. The silence that followed was deafening, filled only by the hum of the air conditioner and the soft, horrified gasp from Inko. But for Izuku, the silence wasn't empty. While the doctor droned on about genetics and heredity, Izuku wasn't looking at the X-ray. He wasn't even looking at the doctor's face. He was staring at the doctor's left shoulder. Sitting there, perched like a grotesque parrot, was a small, shriveled man. He was no bigger than a cat, with skin the color of bruised plums and eyes that bulged from their sockets. The tiny man was picking at the doctor's earlobe with a long, jagged fingernail, pulling away flakes of skin and eating them with a wet, smacking sound. Izuku blinked. He rubbed his eyes. The tiny man remained. "Mom," Izuku whispered, his voice trembling. "Izuku, honey, I know." Inko began, tears welling in her eyes as she reached for him. "No," Izuku said, pointing a shaking finger. "Why is the little purple man eating the doctor's ear?" The doctor stopped speaking. He looked at Inko, then down at Izuku. "Excuse me?" "The little man," Izuku insisted, his fear of the quirkless diagnosis momentarily eclipsed by the visceral horror of the creature on the shoulder. "He's sitting right there. He has 3 eyes." The doctor brushed his shoulder reflexively, frowning. "There's nothing there, kid. Just lint." "He's hissing at me now," Izuku whimpered, pressing his face into his mother's side. The creature had indeed turned, bearing rows of shark-like teeth and emitting a sound like a leaking gas pipe. Inko pulled Izuku close, her face pale. She looked at the doctor with an apologetic, terrified expression. I'm so sorry, doctor. He's just in shock. He has a vivid imagination." "Right," the doctor grunted, scribbling something on his notepad. "Possible psychological distress mechanism," he wrote. "Take him home, Mrs. Midoriya. It's a hard day for him." They left the office. As the door closed, Izuku looked back through the frosted glass. The shadow of the doctor was there, slumped in his chair. And the shadow of the small thing was there, too, now jumping up and down on the doctor's head. That night the storm came. Rain lashed against the windows of the Midoriya apartment. In the living room, the computer screen glowed with the familiar footage of All Might saving the day. "Fear not!" "Why?" "Because I am here." Izuku sat in the chair, the tears flowing freely now. The devastation of being quirkless had finally settled in, mixing with the terrifying confusion of what he had seen earlier. "Mom," Izuku choked out, turning the chair to face her. Even if I don't have a quirk, can I still be a hero? Can I be like him?" Inko collapsed to her knees, hugging him tightly. "I'm sorry, Izuku. I'm so sorry," she apologized. She didn't say yes, but as Izuku cried into her shoulder, his eyes drifted to the corner of the ceiling. Hovering there, upside down, was a woman with a neck that stretched 3 feet long, her hair defying gravity. She watched them with sad, milky eyes. Izuku screamed. Inko thought he was screaming from grief. She held him tighter. But Izuku was screaming because the woman's lips were moving, whispering a single word over and over again. Aliens, 2. The outcast of Aldera Junior High. 10 years passed. Time did not heal the wound of being quirkless. It only allowed the scar tissue to harden into a shield. But for Izuku Midoriya, the label of quirkless was only half the burden. By the time he was 14, Izuku had acquired a reputation far worse than being powerless. In the brutal social hierarchy of Aldera Junior High, he wasn't just Deku the useless wooden doll, he was creepy Deku. He wore glasses now. He didn't need them, his vision was 20/20. But the frames felt like a barrier, a wall of glass between him and the things that occupied the empty spaces of the world, the things that stood at intersections but didn't cross. The things that floated in the school bathrooms. The things that crawled on the ceilings of the subway. He had learned, through trial and terror, that ignoring them was the only way to survive. If you acknowledged them, they noticed you. If they noticed you, they followed you. Midoriya. The teacher's voice snapped him out of his trance. Izuku jolted in his seat, his hand instinctively covering the notebook on his desk. It wasn't just Hero Analysis for the Future number 13. The title had been amended in jagged permanent marker. Hero Analysis Paranormal Defense Theory number 13. Yes, sir? Izuku squeaked. Since you're muttering to yourself again, the teacher said, exhausted, perhaps you can tell the class the answer to the equation. Izuku looked at the board. Quadratic formulas. Simple stuff. But as he looked, a translucent, gelatinous blob drifted through the blackboard, obscuring the x variable. Izuku adjusted his fake glasses, squinting through the spirit. X equals -3, Izuku said softly. Correct. Try to pay attention. The class snickered. He was probably talking to his imaginary friends again. Someone whispered. Don't look at him, or he'll put a hex on you. Izuku shrank into his shoulders. He gripped his pen. They don't understand, he thought. They think quirks are everything. They think biology explains the world. They don't know about the frequencies. They don't know about the Sepoyans monitoring the satellites. All right, settle down, the teacher said, waving a stack of papers. I was going to hand out these career aptitude forms, but why bother? I know you all want to be heroes, the class erupted. Quirks flared, extended fingers, floating objects, minor telekinesis. It was a carnival of biological miracles. Yes, you all have wonderful quirks, the teacher said. But no power usage in school. Now let's see. Oh, Bakugo is aiming for UA High, correct? Katsuki Bakugo leaned back in his chair, feet on the desk. Don't lump me in with these extras, teach. I'm the only one here with the stuff to make it to the big leagues. I'm going to surpass All Might, and become the richest hero of all time. Oh, right, the teacher mused, looking at his list. And Midoriya wants to go to UA too, doesn't he? The silence that followed was heavy, absolute, and terrifying. Then, the laughter exploded. It was a wave of mockery that shook the windows. Midoriya? No way. You can't get into the hero course with just good grades. He's gonna try to exorcise the villains. Bakugo slammed his hand onto his desk, creating an explosion that silenced the room. DKU. Izuku flinched, raising his arms in defense. Keikaken! Forget the shitty quirkless part, Bakugo growled, smoke rising from his palm. You're a gloom and doom nerd who thinks aliens are real. You think Yui wants a freak who talks to thin air? You're worse than a pebble on the side of the road. They got rid of that rule. Izuku stammered, his back pressing against the wall. There's no rule saying you have to have a quirk. If I can just prove that spiritual energy is a viable alternative energy source, then shut up with your occult crap. Bakugo roared, lunging forward. The class ended in chaos, as it always did. 3. The burning of the book. The sun was setting, casting long, bruised shadows across the empty classroom. Izuku was packing his bag, his movements slow and methodical. He checked his phone. No alerts on the cryptid forums he frequented. Moo magazine hadn't updated its blog. We're not done yet, Deku. Bakugo stood at the door, flanked by his 2 lackeys. He walked over to Izuku's desk and snatched the notebook from his hands. Hero Analysis and Paranormal Defense? Bakugo read the title, his lip curling in disgust. You really are sick in the head. You think believing in ghosts makes you special? It makes you pathetic. Give it back, Kaken, Izuku said, though his voice lacked conviction. Boom! Bakugo clapped his hands around the notebook. Smoke billowed out. When he pulled his hands away, the cover was charred, the pages singing. He tossed it carelessly out the open window. Izuku watched it fall, his heart sinking with it. That book contained his latest theories on the Loch Ness Monster, and its potential link to the water hose heroes. You want to be a hero so bad? Bakugo asked, his voice dropping to a menacing purr. He placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. It was hot. I've got a time-saving idea for you. Izuku looked up, trembling. If you think you have a connection to the other side, Bakugo sneered, why don't you take a swan dive off the roof? Maybe you'll trigger a reincarnation and come back with a quirk. Bakugo and his friends laughed as they walked out. Izuku stood there, frozen. His fists clenched at his sides. Reincarnation. The word echoed in his mind. It wasn't the cruelty of the suicide baiting that hit him hardest. He had heard worse on the internet forums. It was the specific word. Reincarnation. Why did that word feel like a key turning in a rusty lock? He walked out of the school, his head down. He found his notebook in the koi pond. The fish were nibbling at the burned edges. Stupid Kaken, Izuku muttered, fishing the book out. If I died, I wouldn't reincarnate immediately. I'd become a Jigaku-bound spirit due to unresolved grudges. The spiritual bureaucracy is a nightmare. He doesn't know anything. He wiped the wet pages. I'm not crazy, he whispered to the koi fish. I'm not. As he walked toward the underpass, the headache started. It began as a dull throb behind his eyes and quickly escalated into a piercing spike, as if someone were driving a railroad spike through his pineal gland. He stumbled, dropping the wet notebook. Images flashed. Not memories of school. Not memories of his mother. He saw a girl with pigtails and a sharp tongue. Momo Ice. He saw a high-speed chase through a construction site. He felt the sensation of running so fast the world turned into a blur of neon lines. He felt a deep, crushing depression, a loneliness that spanned galaxies. He felt the weight of golden balls missing from his body. What? Izuku gasped, clutching his head. He fell to his knees on the concrete. The memories weren't his. But they were his. My name is Izuku Midoriya. My name was Kentakakura. They called me Okarun. The two identities swirled like mixing paint. The shy, hero-worshipping boy and the occult-obsessed, awkward boy from a past life. They weren't contradictory. They were complementary. They fit together like puzzle pieces. Izuku's obsession with the occult wasn't a coping mechanism. It was nostalgia. The headache vanished as quickly as it had come, leaving Izuku gasping for air on the sidewalk. He pushed his glasses up his nose. The world looked sharper. The shadows looked deeper. I remember, he whispered. I remember, the Turbo Granny. He stood up. His posture changed. He didn't hunch as much. He stood with a strange, nervous energy, his hands hovering near his pockets. If I'm him, if I'm Okarun. Izuku looked at his hands. Do I still have the curse? He tried to run. He sprinted 10 feet. It was just a normal, sluggish jog. He stopped, panting. No power, he muttered. Just the memories. Just the knowledge that aliens are definitely trying to steal our reproductive organs. He picked up his notebook and dusted it off. He needed to get home. He needed to reorganize his room. He needed to buy more salt. For the tunnel and the sludge. The route home took him through a pedestrian tunnel. It was a place where light struggled to survive, the fluorescent bulbs flickering in a rhythmic, dying code. The walls were covered in graffiti and layers of grime. Izuku walked into the tunnel, the sound of his footsteps echoing loudly. Slap. 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 He stopped. The air pressure dropped. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up, not from fear, but from static electricity. The smell of sewage and rotting vegetables filled his nose. A Class B spirit? Izuku muttered, adjusting his backpack. Or maybe a cryptid dwelling in the sewer lines? He turned around. Rising from the manhole cover behind him was a wall of sludge. It wasn't a spirit. It was physical. Massive. Fluid. Two manic eyes floated in the muck. A medium-sized invisibility cloak? The sludge villain gurgled. No. You'll do. A plain-looking kid. perfect skin suit to hide in. Izuku analyzed the threat instantly. Physical composition, liquid. Weakness, solidification or evaporation. Danger level, lethal. Don't worry, kid, the villain hissed, lunging forward. It'll only hurt for about 45 seconds. Then the pain stops forever. Izuku scrambled back, dropping his bag. He didn't scream. Okarun's memories surged forward, panic, yes, but analytical panic. Run. You have to run, but he couldn't. His legs were heavy. He was just Izuku Midoriya. Quirkless, the sludge slammed into him. It was cold, and tasted like oil. It forced its way into his mouth, his nose. Izuku clawed at the fluid, his fingers slipping uselessly. I'm going to die, he thought. I'm going to die before I can tell Mom I love her. I'm going to die before I can prove them wrong. His vision began to darken. The edges of the world turned black. Fear not! A booming voice shattered the tunnel's acoustics. The manhole cover flew into the air. A figure emerged from the sewers, bathed in artificial light. He was massive, a titan of muscle and American coloring. I am here, All Might, the sludge villain shrieked. All Might? Texas. Smash! The wind pressure alone was enough to level a building. The punch didn't even connect physically. The shockwave blasted the sludge apart, splattering the villain across the tunnel walls like dropped paint. Izuku was thrown back, hitting the ground hard. He gasped, coughing up sludge, his lungs burning as he sucked in sweet, precious air. He looked up. There, standing tall, steaming slightly, was the symbol of peace. Are you all right, young man? All Might asked, his signature smile blindingly bright. Apologies for getting you caught up in my justice ing. I was chasing this slippery fellow through the sewer system. Izuku stared. It was him. The hero. The legend. All. Izuku fumbled for his notebook. Autograph. Please, already done. All Might laughed, holding up the charred notebook. He had signed a pristine page in bold, sweeping kanji. Thank you? It's a family heirloom. Izuku bowed repeatedly. Now, I must be off to deliver this guy to the police. All Might said, scooping the unconscious sludge into 2 empty soda bottles. Stay safe, citizen. All Might crouched, ready to leap. Wait! Izuku shouted. I have to ask you something. All Might paused, his legs tensed. I am in a bit of a rush. Can someone without a quirk be a hero? Izuku yelled, the question tearing out of his throat. Can someone who is cursed, or haunted, or just normal, can they be like you? All Might stopped. The smile faltered for a microsecond. Steam rose from his body. Without a quirk? All Might said softly. He looked at the boy. He saw the desperation. But he also felt the time limit pressing on his body. The pain in his side flared. Pro heroes are always risking their lives, All Might said, his voice dropping the boisterous tone. So, I cannot honestly say, yes, you can be a hero without power. It is too dangerous. If you want to help people, there is always the police force. They get mocked, but it's a fine profession. The words hit Izuku harder than the sludge villain had. All Might leaped into the sky, a sonic boom marking his departure. Izuku stood alone in the tunnel. The silence returned. I knew it, Izuku whispered. He looked at his hands. Biology wins. Quirks win. Magic doesn't exist here. He turned to walk home, the weight of the rejection crushing his spirit. And then, he heard it. It wasn't the gurgle of the sludge. It wasn't the wind. It was a raspy, irritating, screeching voice coming from the shadows of the tunnel ceiling. You depressingly nerdish brat. Are you done crying yet? It's giving me a headache. Izuku froze. He knew that voice. It was etched into the soul he had just remembered. He slowly looked up. Clinging to the damp concrete of the tunnel archway was a cat. A white beckoning cat statue, Maneki Niko, but it was moving. Its red bib was stained. Its eyes glowed a malevolent crimson. No way, Izuku breathed. He took off his glasses and wiped them, then put them back on. The cat was still there. You! Izuku pointed. The cat statue hopped down, landing with a heavy clunk that sounded like stone hitting pavement. It cracked its neck. Yeah, me! The cat sneered. Turbo Granny! the modern yokai. And let me tell you, kid, finding you in this dimension took way too long. The Wi-Fi reception in the spirit world is terrible. Turbo Granny? Izuku stepped back, his back hitting the wall. But that's from my past life. You're supposed to be, I don't know, gone? Exorcised? Exorcised? Ha! The cat spat. I'm a curse, kid. We stick like gum on a shoe. When your soul recycled into this green-haired wimp body, I got dragged along for the ride. I've been asleep in your chakra network for 14 years. Boring. Absolute boredom. Do you know how much math you do in your head? It's nauseating. Izuku stared at the talking statue. His mind raced. This is a yokai. A powerful one. Speed-based. Territory, tunnels and roads. Curse effect. Loss of genitalia. Instinctively, Izuku covered his crotch with both hands. Oh, relax. Turbo Granny rolled her eyes. I don't want your balls. Not this time. This world is weird. Everyone has powers. It's inflation. My market value has plummeted. She began to pace around him, her stone paws clicking on the asphalt. Listen, kid. I saw that big blonde idiot turn you down. Brutal. But here's the deal. I'm bored. I'm stuck to you anyway. And I hate, these wannabe heroes flying around like they own the place. They have no style. No elegance. She stopped in front of him, looking up with a wicked grin. You want to be a hero? You want to run fast? I can give you the power. But we do it my way. We fight the aliens. We fight the spirits. And we make that blonde guy look like a turtle. Izuku lowered his hands. His heart was pounding. This was dangerous. This was a curse. This was exactly the kind of thing Moo magazine warned about, making deals with entities in tunnels. But All Might had said no. The world had said no. Biology had said no. Here was a ghost saying yes. You'll lend me your power? Izuku asked. Lend? No. I'm possessing you, dummy. But we'll call it a partnership. Now say the words. Izuku took a deep breath. He adjusted his glasses. A glint of the old okarun determination flashed in his eyes. Let's get weird, Izuku said. Turbo Granny cackled. That's the spirit! She leaped. She didn't hit him, she phased into him. A cold shockwave blasted through Izuku's body. It felt like being dunked in ice water. His veins turned black for a second, then faded. His hair stood up slightly. The spirals in his eyes began to spin, and then, the explosion happened. Boom! In the distance, blocks away, a plume of smoke rose into the sky. Screams echoed through the city. That's... Izuku's voice sounded different. Distorted. Like two people speaking at once. That's the shopping district. Smells like trouble. Turbo Granny's voice echoed in his head. And it smells like that sludge bag didn't stay in the bottles. Izuku's eyes widened. Kakin is near there. So? Granny asked. So, Izuku said, crouching down. The stance was unnatural, low to the ground, like a sprinter in the starting blocks, but with a feral edge. So, I'm going to save him. With what? You gonna cry at the villain? Izuku grinned. It was a terrifying, jagged grin that didn't belong on Deku's face. Turbo, Izuku whispered. Oh, I like where this is going. Zoom. The asphalt cracked. Izuku didn't run. He vanished. He moved so fast that the sound barrier didn't have time to break until he was already 3 streets away. The tunnel was left empty, save for a lingering trail of dust and the faint, ghostly sound of an engine revving. The convergence of occult and heroism. The shopping district was a hell's cape. Flames roared from shattered storefronts. The sludge villain had reformed, larger and more volatile than before. He had a hostage. Explosions popped rhythmically as Katsuki Bakugo struggled, his quirk firing wildly, only feeding the chaos. Pro-heroes stood on the sidelines, helpless. I can't get in there. Death Arms shouted. There's no room to maneuver. My wood will catch fire. Kamui Woods yelled. We have to wait for someone with a suitable quirk. The crowd watched in horror. Bakugo's eyes were wide with terror, his mouth gagged by sludge, unable to breathe. I'm dying, Bakugo thought. Me. The future number 1. Dying in a sewer villain. Then, he saw him, running past the police barricade. Not running, gliding. Stop him! A hero shouted. That kid is gonna get killed. Izuku didn't hear them. The world was moving in slow motion. He could see the individual particles of dust in the air. He could hear the heartbeat of the villain. Use the gears, kid! Turbo Granny shouted in his mind. Shift up! Izuku felt the power surging through his legs. It wasn't muscle. It was spiritual torque. Let him go! Izuku screamed. The sludge villain looked down. You again? The invisible cloak. I'll crush you! He swung a massive tendril of sludge. In any other timeline, Izuku would have flinched. He would have clawed uselessly at the sludge. Not this time. Izuku saw the attack coming. To his heightened senses, it looked like a sloth moving through molasses. Left. Dodge. Izuku sidestepped. He moved so fast he left an afterimage. The sludge tentacle smashed into the pavement where he had been a millisecond ago. The pro-heroes gasped. Did he teleport? Empty Lady asked. Izuku was now airborne. He had run up the falling debris of a building, defying gravity with sheer momentum. He was above the villain. Drop the hammer! Granny cackled. Izuku flipped in the air. His leg glowed with a ghostly blue aura. The fabric of his school trousers rippled. Turbo! Izuku roared. He came down like a meteor. But he didn't kick the villain directly. He kicked the air above the villain's head. Axe! The kinetic pressure slammed downward. The air compressed and exploded. Wham! The sludge villain's liquid body rippled violently, the shockwave forcing the fluid away from the center. Bakugo was exposed, gasping for air. Izuku landed in a crouch between Bakugo and the villain. He looked different. His hair was floating upwards, turning white at the tips. A red mask, like a classic Japanese demon, formed over the lower half of his face, made of energy. Bakugo stared at him, coughing. Deku? Izuku looked back. The spiral pattern in his eyes was spinning frantically. Yo, Kaken, Izuku said, his voice overlapping with the rasp of an old woman. You look like you've seen a ghost. The sludge villain recovered, shrieking in rage. I'll kill you both. He raised a tidal wave of muck to crash down on them. Izuku braced himself. He couldn't hold this form for long. His bones were aching. The human body wasn't meant to channel a yokai without preparation. One more dash, Granny warned. Then you pass out. Right, Izuku gritted his teeth. But before the wave could crash, a wall of wind blasted it away. All Might was there. He had forced his limit, blood trickling from his mouth. He stood in front of the boys, shielding them. I really am pathetic, All Might shouted, grabbing the villain's main body. I preached to you about the dangers, yet here I am, watching a child teach me what it means to be a hero. Detroit smash. The punch changed the weather. The clouds parted. Rain fell. The villain was obliterated into harmless droplets. The crowd went silent, then erupted into cheers. All Might stood victorious. Behind him, Izuku Midoriya slumped to the ground. The red energy mask faded. His hair settled. He was just a boy again, but as the paramedics rushed over, and the heroes began to scold him for his recklessness, Izuku looked up at the sky. High above the clouds, invisible to everyone else, a silver disk hovered. A UFO. And sitting on top of the traffic light, cleaning her paws, was a small, white cat statue. She winked at him. Izuku adjusted his glasses, a small smile playing on his lips. Aliens, he whispered. I knew it. The heroes scolded him. The media praised Bakugo. But later that evening, as All Might caught up to Izuku walking home to offer him a strange proposal involving hair and inheritance, All Might paused. Young Midoriya, All Might said, looking at the boy. Back there, your speed. That wasn't a quirk, was it? The registry said you were quirkless. Izuku froze. He looked at the skeletal form of the number 1 hero. It's not a quirk, Izuku admitted. He tapped the side of his head. It's complicated. It's the occult. All Might blinked. The occult? Yes, Izuku said, dead serious. And we need to talk about the cryptids living in UA's basement. All Might stared at him. Then, surprisingly, he laughed. A dry, hacking cough of a laugh. You are a strange one, young Midoriya. But perhaps strange is what the world needs right now. Now eat this. He held out a strand of golden hair. Izuku stared at the hair. Then he looked at the ghost of Turbo Granny hovering over All Might's shoulder. Don't eat that, Granny said. It has split ends, Izuku sighed. It was going to be a long life. The noise of the world. The human soul is a broadcast tower. It transmits fear, hunger, lust, and rage on frequencies that the average person is blissfully deaf to. But for Izuku Midoriya, or rather, the boy who was beginning to remember that he was once Ken Takakura, okarun, the volume knob had been broken off and the dial cranked to the maximum. Since the incident at the school, where Bakugo had burned his notebook and urged him to take a swan dive, the world had changed. It wasn't visual, at least, not entirely. It was auditory. A constant, low-level hum of spiritual static overlaid the physical world. Izuku walked home, clutching the charred remains of Hero Analysis for the future number 13. His head throbbed. Aliens, he muttered to himself, stepping over a crack in the sidewalk that, to his eyes, looked like a weeping mouth. The Sepoyans are likely using the quark singularity theory as a cover for their breeding experiments. It makes sense. If genetics become unstable, they can harvest the raw biological data. He stopped at a crosswalk. A woman stood next to him. To anyone else, she was a tired office worker. To Izuku, she was being ridden by a small, imp-like spirit that was chewing on her shoulder pads. Ignore it, the okarun side of his brain commanded. If you acknowledge them, they attach. Don't make eye contact. But I have to save her. The Izuku's side argued. I want to be a hero. You can't punch a concept, you idiot, okarun retorted. Walk away. He adjusted his glasses. They were fake, just window glass and plastic frames, but they felt like a barrier. A shield. He turned into the pedestrian tunnel. It was the shortcut home, a place of echoing concrete and flickering fluorescent lights that buzzed like dying insects. It was the kind of liminal space where the veil between the living and the dead was thin, porous like wet tissue paper. Izuku stopped in the center of the tunnel. The air grew cold. Not the chill of a winter breeze, but the deeper, penetrating cold of a walk-in freezer. The shadows cast by the pillars seemed to stretch, reaching toward him like elongated fingers. I know you're there, Izuku whispered. His voice trembled, but his stance was firm. He dropped his bag. Silence. Then, a scratching sound. Scritch. 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 From the darkness of the drainage grate, a pair of eyes opened. They were red, glowing with a malevolent, ancient boredom. Took you long enough, Four Eyes? A voice rasped. It sounded like gravel being ground in a blender. Izuku swallowed hard. You're the Turbo Granny. A silhouette hopped out of the darkness. It landed with a heavy, metallic thud. It was a Moneki Nico, a beckoning cat statue, but it moved with the fluidity of a predator. Its painted ceramic surface was chipped and stained with grime. Turbo Granny? Is that how you greet an old friend? The cat statue sat on its haunches and began to clean a ceramic paw with a surprisingly realistic tongue. I prefer supreme spirit of the modern age, but I suppose beggars can't be choosers. Especially not quirkless beggars like you. Izuku stepped back, his back hitting the curved wall of the tunnel. You were in my head. At the doctor's office. 10 years ago. I've been in your head for lifetimes, kid. The cat sneered. Do you have any idea how boring it is in there? It's all might this and smash that. Not a single impure thought. It's disgusting. A teenage boy's mind should be a cesspool of filth, but yours is like a sterilized hospital ward. I'm sorry? Izuku apologized instinctively. The cat sighed, a sound that rattled in its hollow chest. Look, let's cut to the chase. You remember who you were, right? The runner? The occult nut job? Ken Takakura, Izuku nodded. The name felt like a sweater that fit perfectly. Okarun. Right. Okarun. My favorite chew toy. The cat grinned, revealing rows of jagged, needle-like teeth inside the ceramic mouth. Here's the situation. This world? It's too loud. All these quirks, it's biological noise. It drowns out the spiritual frequencies. That's why you don't see many big spirits around. They're hiding. They hate the noise. She hopped closer. But you're a vacuum. You're empty. No quirk. Just a nice, hollow vessel waiting to be filled. And I'm sick of sleeping, too, the deal. Izuku looked down at the cat. What do you want? I want to run, Turbo Granny said, her voice dropping to a low growl. I want to tear up the asphalt. I want to feel the wind shear, and since I don't have legs right now, just this tacky ceramic shell, I need yours. You want to possess me? Collaborate, she corrected. I lend you my power. You get the speed. You get the curse. You get to be the hero or whatever nonsense you're obsessed with. In exchange, you let me take the wheel sometimes, and you find me some decent entertainment. Aliens, ghosts, cryptids. I don't care. Just something that isn't a guy in spandex waving at a camera. Izuku hesitated. This was dangerous. Every occult text he had ever read, both in this life and the last, warned against making deals with spirits in tunnels. It was the classic setup for a tragic ending, but then he thought of Bakugo's face. The mockery. He thought of the doctor's pity. He thought of All Might, untouchable and distant. If I accept. Izuku started clenching his fists. Will I be fast enough? Turbo Granny threw her head back and cackled. The sound echoed violently, cracking one of the overhead lights. Glass rained down around them. Fast enough? Kid, these heroes obey the laws of physics. They have muscle mass, friction coefficients, drag. I'm a curse. I tell physics to sit down and shut up. You won't just be fast. You'll be a blur. You'll be a glitch in the matrix. She leaped onto his shoulder. She was heavy, cold, and smelled faintly of ozone and old shrines. So? Do we have a deal? Or are you going to go home and cry into your pillow again? Izuku looked at his reflection in a puddle of dirty water. He saw his green curls, his freckles, his fear. But behind the glasses, he saw the glint of determination that belonged to Okarun. I don't want to cry anymore, Izuku whispered. I'll do it. Good answer. The cat statue dissolved. It didn't melt. It shattered into purple mist that swirled around Izuku's head. He gasped as the cold invaded him. It rushed into his nose, his mouth, his ears. It settled in his chest, a ball of ice that burned. His vision fractured. For a second, he saw the tunnel not as concrete, but as a ribbed throat of a giant beast. He saw spirits clinging to the walls like barnacles. Then, the pain hit his legs. It felt like his muscles were being rewired, stripped apart, and braided back together with steel cables. Let's test the engine. Granny's voice echoed in his skull. Izuku took a step. Boom. He didn't just step. He launched. He hit the end of the tunnel in a microsecond, slamming face first into the chain-link fence outside. Ow! Izuku groaned, peeling himself off the fence. Brakes need work, Granny commented dryly. Also, your posture is terrible. You run like a penguin. Fix it. 3. The sludge and the silence. Before Izuku could practice, a sound tore through the air. An explosion. It was distant, but to Izuku's heightened senses, it sounded like it was happening inside his ear canal. He looked toward the shopping district. Smoke was rising, a black pillar against the twilight sky. Oh, that smells nasty. Granny sniffed inside his mind. Rotting sewage. Desperation. And, is that nitroglycerin? Kakin, Izuku gasped. He didn't think. He didn't analyze. He just ran. This time, he tried to control it. He leaned forward, letting his arms trail behind him in the classic Naruto run style that Okarun had always instinctively used, not because of anime, but because of aerodynamics. The world blurred. Buildings became streaks of gray and brown. Cars seemed to be parked even when they were driving. The wind roared in his ears, but it wasn't harsh. It formed a slipstream around him. Left! Drifting! Granny shouted. Izuku banked hard, his sneakers screeching against the pavement. He didn't lose momentum, he converted it. He grabbed a lamppost, swung around it with centripetal force, and launched himself down the next street. He arrived at the scene in seconds. The devastation was absolute. The Tatooine Station shopping district was ablaze. The sludge villain, the same one All Might had been chasing earlier, had escaped. and he had found a new skin suit, Katsuki Bakugo. The villain was a mountain of muck, pulsating and heaving. Bakugo's head was barely visible, his face a rictus of suffocation and rage. Explosions popped from his palms, but they were useless. The sludge just absorbed the impact and reformed. The pro-heroes were useless. I can't get close. Death Arms yelled, shielding his face from the heat. My wood is useless against fire. Kamui Woods cried. Where is All Might? The crowd watched, terrified. Izuku stood at the back of the crowd, panting. Not from exhaustion, but from the sheer adrenaline of the run. Look at them! Granny sneered. Pathetic. They're waiting for a matchup. They treat this like a game of rock, paper, scissors. Oh, I'm wood, I can't fight fire. Excuses. A real spirit fights with intent. Izuku watched Bakugo. Their eyes met. In Bakugo's eyes, usually filled with arrogance and hostility, Izuku saw something that shattered his heart. Fear. Pure, unadulterated fear. And a silent plea. Help me. Izuku's legs moved on their own. Stop. You'll get yourself killed. A hero shouted as Izuku ducked under the police tape. Go, kid! Show them the power of the occult. Granny shrieked in glee. Izuku didn't just run this time. He engaged the curse fully. Transformation. It wasn't a biological shift like a quirk. It was a spiritual overlay. A red, spectral mask slammed onto his face, resembling a demonic visage with a long nose. His hair defied gravity, spiking upward and bleaching white at the tips. The air around him distorted, heavy with static. Turbo Granny Dash. Izuku screamed the name of the move because okarun believed that naming attacks gave them spiritual weight. He vanished. To the onlookers, it appeared as though Izuku teleported. One moment he was at the barricade, the next, he was inside the fire. But Izuku experienced every millisecond. He saw the flames. He saw the sludge. He saw the villain's eye widening in confusion. Aim for the eyes! Granny commanded. They're the window to the soul, and also the squishiest part. Izuku didn't have super strength. He knew that. If he punched the sludge, his arm would break, or get stuck. He needed physics. He needed torque. He slammed his foot into the pavement, creating a crater, and used the resistance to spin. He became a top. He swung his backpack, filled with heavy textbooks and a bag of salt he had bought earlier, and released it at terminal velocity. Thwack! The backpack hit the sludge villain's left eye with the force of a cannonball. Aya! The villain recoiled, his liquid form rippling. The grip on Bakugo loosened for a fraction of a second. That was enough. Izuku was there. He grabbed the sludge around Bakugo's mouth. Let him go! Izuku roared. His voice was layered, a boy's scream mixed with a hag's cackle. He didn't pull with muscles. He pulled with spiritual rejection. He visualized the sludge as an unclean spirit, and pushed his aura against it. Get off him, you walking toilet! Granny yelled through Izuku's mouth. The sludge hissed, reacting to the spiritual energy like acid. It pulled back, freeing Bakugo's face. Bakugo gasped, sucking in air. He looked at Izuku. He saw the red mask. He saw the glowing spiral eyes. Deku? Bakugo wheezed. What the hell are you? I'm... Izuku started, holding his ground as the flames licked at his heels. I'm the guy saving your ass, you brat. The sludge villain recovered. He towered over them, casting a shadow of doom. I'll swallow you both. I'll drown you and wear your skins. A massive tendril of sludge, hardened like concrete, swung down. Izuku braced himself. He had no exit. He had used his momentum. We're gonna get squashed, Granny noted casually. Unless what? Izuku screamed internally. Unless you believe? Izuku looked up. The sludge was inches away. I believe, he thought. I believe in heroes. For the symbol and the specter. Time stopped. Or rather, it was forcibly paused by the arrival of a force of nature greater than any curse. A hand grabbed Izuku's shoulder. Another grabbed Bakugo's. I really am pathetic, a deep voice rumbled. Izuku looked back. Blood dripped from the corner of All Might's mouth. Steam rose from his skin. He wasn't smiling. He was grimacing with effort and fury. I admonish you for not having a quirk, All Might said, his blue eyes burning with intensity. I told you to be realistic. And yet, here I am, watching a quirkless boy act more like a hero than anyone else. All Might pulled back his free arm. Detroit, the sludge villain shrieked. Not again! Smash! The punch didn't hit the villain. It hit the air pressure in front of the villain. The resulting updraft was a localized hurricane. The sludge was atomized. The fire was blown out instantly. The clouds above the city were punched open, changing the barometric pressure of the entire ward. Rain began to fall from the clear sky. Izuku and Bakugo were shielded by All Might's body, but the wind pressure still knocked them flat. As the dust settled, All Might stood tall, his fist raised. The crowd was silent for a heartbeat, then erupted into deafening cheers. He changed the weather. It's All Might. Izuku lay on the wet pavement. The red mask faded from his face. The white tips of his hair turned back to green. The exhaustion hit him like a freight train. Show off, Turbo Granny muttered, retreating deep into Izuku's subconscious. All flash, no substance. I could have done that if I had my original body. And my teeth. And maybe a little more calcium. Izuku stared at All Might's back. He's amazing, he thought. But Granny is right. It felt different. His power is loud. Mine felt quiet. The lecture and the logic. The aftermath was a blur of flashing lights and scolding voices. The pro-heroes were furious. You were reckless! Kamui Wood scolded Izuku, pointing a wooden finger in his face. You have no license. You have no quirk. That speed, was that a support item? Illegal gear? It was adrenaline? Izuku lied weakly. Don't give me that. You moved like a bullet. You could have gotten yourself killed and the hostage too. Meanwhile, Bakugo was being praised. That quirk is amazing, kid. Vaguely Unnamed Hero 3 said, patting Bakugo on the back. You held out for so long. You're a natural. Bakugo didn't answer. He sat on the back of an ambulance, a towel around his shoulders. He was staring at Izuku. His red eyes were narrowed, calculating. He had seen the mask. He had heard the voice. That wasn't Deku, Bakugo thought. That was something else. As the police finally let them go, Izuku began the long walk home. He felt drained. His legs ached with a dull, throbbing pain, a reminder of the unnatural forces he had channeled. You did okay, kid. Granny's voice floated up. For an amateur. But you lack style. Next time, try a dropkick. Dropkicks are classy. I almost died, Izuku mumbled. Almost doesn't count. In the spirit world, you're either dead or you're a nuisance. We aim to be a nuisance, Deku. Izuku turned. Bakugo was running after him. He stopped a few feet away, panting. Kaken? Bakugo glared at him. He looked like he wanted to scream, to explode, to fight. But he just stood there, vibrating with suppressed emotion. I didn't ask for your help, Bakugo spat. And I sure as hell didn't need it from a quirkless loser like you. Don't think you looked cool. You looked like a freak. A demon, but Bakugo cut him off, his voice cracking slightly. But you moved. The pros didn't. You did. He turned around sharply. I don't owe you anything. You hear me? Nothing. Bakugo stomped away. Izuku watched him go. A small smile touched his lips. He likes you. Granny cackled. He wants to hold hands. Shut up, Granny. 6. The Inheritance of Ghosts. Izuku continued his walk. The streetlights flickered as he passed, a side effect of his new aura. I am here. All Might burst from a side alley, sliding into a pose. Or he tried to. Halfway through the pose, he exploded into a cloud of steam and reverted to his skeletal, true form. He coughed up an alarming amount of blood. All Might. Izuku rushed over. Are you okay? I am fine, young Midoriya. All Might wheezed, wiping his mouth. Just old injuries catching up to me. He straightened up, looking at the boy. The street was empty, save for them and the subtle presence of the supernatural that All Might couldn't quite see, but could definitely feel. I have a confession, All Might said. I tricked you. I told you that you couldn't be a hero without a quirk. I was trying to protect you. But today, you proved me wrong. Izuku's eyes widened. I did. Heroes are not defined by their power, All Might said, placing a hand on his chest. They are defined by the fact that their bodies move before they can think. That happened to you today, didn't it? Tears welled in Izuku's eyes. He nodded. Young Midoriya. You are worthy. All Might took a deep breath. I have a secret. My quirk, one for all, it is not natural. It is a torch, passed down from one user to the next. I am the 8th holder. And I am looking for a successor. He pointed a long, bony finger at Izuku. I want you to inherit my power. The wind blew through the alley. It was a momentous occasion. The greatest hero offering his legacy to the quirkless boy. But inside Izuku's head, chaos erupted. No! Absolutely not! Turbo Granny screeched. I know that power! That's the one for all nonsense! It's haunted! It's haunted by 8 different ghosts. Do you have any idea how crowded it is in your soul already? I am not sharing a bunk bed with a bunch of self-righteous hero spirits. Izuku flinched, clutching his head. Is something wrong? All Might asked, concerned. It's just... Izuku stammered. My, passenger is objecting. All Might raised an eyebrow. Passenger? Izuku sighed. He couldn't hide it. Not from All Might. All Might, sir. The power I use today, it's a curse. I'm possessed by a yokai. A Turbo Granny. All Might blinked. He blinked again. A Turbo Granny? Let me talk to him! Granny demanded. Izuku took a deep breath. He allowed the transformation to partially take hold, just the mouth. A spectral jaw formed over Izuku's. Listen here, muscles! Granny's voice rasped from Izuku's mouth, causing All Might to jump back in shock. This boy is my territory! I found him first! If you dump your weird, stockpiled ghost energy into him, it's going to mess with my feng shui. All Might stared. He looked at Izuku, then at the spectral jaw, then back at Izuku's apologetic eyes. Most people would run. Most people would call an exorcist. But Tashinori Yagi had seen strange things in his life. He had fought evils that defied explanation. And strangely, he felt a sense of familiarity. Stockpiled ghost energy. All Might mused. That is, actually a very accurate description of One for All. It carries the vestiges of the past users. Exactly! Roommates from hell! Granny spat. However, All Might leaned in, a serious expression on his face. If young Midoriya has a curse, perhaps One for All is exactly what he needs. One for All requires a strong vessel, All Might explained. But it also provides immense physical durability. If this Turbo Granny allows him to move at supersonic speeds, his normal body will eventually shatter. He needs a body capable of withstanding the torque. All Might looked at Izuku. Think of it as a compromise. My power builds the car. Her power is the nitrous oxide. Izuku thought about it. Okarun's analytical mind whirred to life. Combining the raw stockpile of power, yang, with the spiritual velocity of the yokai, yin, the physical reinforcement of OFA would negate the recoil damage of the turbo dash. It could work, Izuku said, regaining control of his mouth. It could actually work really well. Humph. Granny grumbled. Fine. But if those other ghosts try to touch my stuff, I'm eating them. All Might laughed. I will warn them. He plucked a hair from his head and held it out. Eat this. Izuku looked at the hair. Gross. Granny commented. But do it. We have aliens to fight, and you're gonna need the muscle. Izuku took the hair. He looked at the moon. He looked at All Might. Thank you, Izuku said. He swallowed the hair. It tasted like victory. And a little bit like hair gel. 7. The first night. That night, Izuku lay in bed. His room was filled with All Might merchandise watching him from every angle. He felt different. Deep inside him, a small ember had been lit, One for All. It was quiet, waiting to be cultivated. But right next to it, curled up and purring like a chainsaw, was the Turbo Granny. And deeper still, on the periphery of his consciousness, he felt the memories of Okarun surfacing. He remembered a girl. Momo Ice. He remembered promising to find her. I wonder if she's in this world too, Izuku whispered to the ceiling. If she is... Granny yawned in his mind. She's probably kicking someone in the face right now. Now go to sleep. We have beach training tomorrow. And bring salt. Lots of salt. Izuku closed his eyes. For the first time in his life, he wasn't dreaming of being a hero. He was dreaming of running. Running fast enough to leave the world behind. And in the shadows of his room, the faint outline of a Sepoyan drone hovered outside the window, recording everything. The digestive consequences of heroism. The strand of hair did not taste like justice. It tasted like high-end conditioner, ozone, and the distinct, dusty flavor of a decision that couldn't be unmade. Izuku Midoriya sat on the railing of the promenade overlooking Dagoba Municipal Beach, swallowing hard. The sun was rising, casting a pale, golden light over the mountains of trash that choked the coastline. Tires, refrigerators, broken bicycles, and unidentifiable sludge formed a monument to human neglect. It's done, Izuku whispered, rubbing his throat. Disgusting. A voice rasped inside his pineal gland. Absolutely revolting. It tastes like sunshine and self-righteousness. I'm going to throw up, and since I don't have a stomach, I'm going to do it in your soul. Izuku flinched, clutching his head. Please don't, Granny. I'm trying to have a moment here. A moment? You just ate a middle-aged man's DNA on a pile of garbage. The only moment you're having is a lapse in judgment. All Might, currently in his deflated, skeletal form, stood next to him. He wiped a trickle of blood from his mouth with a handkerchief. To him, the boy was just looking overwhelmed. He didn't hear the acerbic commentary of the Turbo Granny. How do you feel, young Midoriya? All Might asked, his voice filled with grave anticipation. Do you feel the power surging? The fire of one for all? Izuku paused. He closed his eyes and looked inward. Usually, his internal world was a dark, damp tunnel where the Turbo Granny, appearing as the manic Maneki Nico, napped or sharpened her claws. But now, something new had entered the ecosystem. It was a light. A ball of swirling, rainbow-colored energy that hummed with a low, resonant frequency. It sat in the center of his chest, pulsing like a second heart. But as Izuku watched with his mind's eye, the light didn't just sit there. It flared. Shadows danced around it. 7 distinct shadows. They looked like people, men and women, indistinct and hazy, standing in a circle around the light. And then, the Turbo Granny hopped down from her perch in his mindscape. She walked up to the holy light of One for All, sniffed it, and hissed. The shadows, the vestiges, recoiled. One of them, a man with white hair, seemed to tremble. Roommates! Granny spat in the real world, her voice overlaying Izuku's. Great! Now it's a hostel in here. Izuku opened his eyes. I feel crowded, All Might. Crowded? All Might tilted his head. Well, it is a stockpiling quirk. It holds a lot of power. But don't worry, your body will digest it in a few hours. Then, the real work begins. All Might gestured grandly to the trash heap. This beach. It used to be beautiful. But look at it now. A mess. Young Midoriya, to prepare your vessel for One for All, you must clean this entire section of the coastline. He produced a stack of papers. I have prepared a regimen. The aim to pass, American Dream Plan. Izuku took the papers. They were detailed. Diet, sleep, lifting angles. It was pure sports science. Boring. Granny yawned. Throw it in the ocean. I can't throw it in the ocean. Izuku snapped out loud. All Might blinked. I didn't say you should throw it in the ocean, my boy. It's a very good plan. Sorry. Not you. Izuku waved his hands frantically. The tenant. All Might's face grew serious. He sat down on a relatively clean tire. Right. The Turbo Granny. We need to discuss this, Midoriya. If we are to train you, we need to understand the nature of this curse. 2. The clash of paradigms. The sun climbed higher, baking the trash. The smell was getting worse. Science, All Might began, holding up a finger. It is the foundation of heroics. Quirks are physical abilities. Muscles tear and rebuild. Energy is converted. Even One for All, mystical as it seems, follows the laws of conservation of energy. It is a biological torch. He looked at Izuku intensely. But you claim this entity is a spirit. A yokai. In the age of quirks, most supernatural phenomena have been debunked as rare psychic emitter types. Are you certain this isn't just a manifestation of a dormant quirk? Izuku adjusted his glasses. The okarun persona, the obsessive occultist, surged forward. His posture shifted. He hunched slightly, his eyes gleaming with a frantic intensity. It's not biology, All Might, Izuku said, his voice dropping an octave. It's frequency. Frequency? Look! Izuku pointed at the trash. To you, that's a broken refrigerator. To a scientist, it's metal and plastic. But to a spiritualist, it's a vessel that has absorbed the emotions of its owners. Frustration, hunger, neglect. When objects are discarded, they accumulate negative ki. That's what yokai feed on. All Might looked at the fridge. It looks like a fridge. Let me handle this, nerd. Granny interjected. A purple mist leaked from Izuku's ears. It coalesced above his shoulder, forming the spectral head of the cat. It was visible even in the daylight, though faint. All Might jumped back, his eyes widening. Good heavens! It's a cat! I am the supreme spirit of the turbo! Granny shrieked. And you, Muscle Man, are loud. Your soul is so bright it hurts my eyes. It's like staring into a halogen lamp. It speaks. All Might gasped. Is this a sentient quirk? Like Dark Shadow? Quirk this, quirk that. Granny rolled her eyes. You define everything by your little genetic lottery. Listen close. I am a curse. I bind to speed. I bind to obsession. And this kid? He's obsessed. She floated down, hovering over the sand. You want him to inherit your power? Fine. But your power is heavy. It's like lead. My power is velocity. If he tries to use my speed with your weight, his legs will snap like twigs. All Might rubbed his chin, recovering his composure. So, there is a conflict of compatibility? No, Izuku interrupted, stepping between the ghost and the hero. Not a conflict. A synergy. He pulled out a new notebook. Paranormal Heroics, Theory of Hybridization. Think about it, Izuku said, scribbling furiously. One for All breaks bodies that aren't ready because the container is too weak for the energy output. Turbo Granny's speed breaks bodies because the G-force and friction exceed human limits. He looked up, his eyes spiral-patterned. What if I use One for All not as a weapon, but as a shield? I don't use it to punch. I use it to reinforce my bone density and muscle fibers. I coat my skeleton in your power, All Might. And then, I use Granny's engine to move. All Might stared. You mean, using One for All purely for durability? A defensive buff? Exactly. Izuku exclaimed. Spiritual armor, humph. Granny grunted. Using a legendary power just to keep your kneecaps attached? It's inefficient. But I suppose it beats exploding. All Might stood up. He grinned. It is unorthodox. It defies standard Smash-based training. But it is brilliant. It is a fusion of East and West. Of the occult and the scientific, he pointed at the trash. But theory is nothing without practice. Midoriya. Try to move that truck tire. 3. The Beach of 100 Spirits. The training began. It was hell. For the first month, Izuku didn't just fight the trash. He fought his own nervous system. One for All was a sleeping dragon. Every time Izuku tried to draw upon it, he felt the presence of the vestiges. They were wary. They whispered in the back of his mind, terrified of the Turbo Granny. She's eating the furniture in the mindscape. A voice that sounded like the fifth user cried out one night in a dream. It's just a scratch post, get over it. Granny yelled back. During the day, Izuku dragged trash. But it wasn't just physical labor. Identify the target. All Might shouted from atop a pile of scrap. Izuku stood before a rusted washing machine. He was shirtless, sweating profusely. Target, washing machine. Izuku yelled. Wrong. Granny's voice echoed. Target, a Tsukumogami in the making. Look at the rust patterns. It's angry. Izuku squinted. With his spirit sight, he saw a faint, dark aura pulsating around the appliance. Right, Izuku corrected himself. Target, possessed washing machine. Strategy, exorcism by kinetic impact. Go! All Might shouted. Izuku closed his eyes. Step 1, one for all. He visualized the egg in the microwave. He didn't let it explode. He let the heat harden the shell. He felt the power flood his bones, not his muscles. His skin glowed with faint red veins. Step 2, turbo. He visualized the golden balls. He still checked every morning to make sure his physical ones were there. They were. The spiritual ones, however, were definitely metaphorically missing, fueling his drive to find them / Okarun's drive. He dropped into a sprinter's crouch. Turbo. Impact. He didn't punch the machine. He shoulder-checked it. The combination of supernatural speed and Ophirian force durability resulted in a deafening clang. The washing machine didn't just move. It flew. It soared over the pile of trash, spinning in the air, and landed 40 feet away in the bed of a pickup truck destined for the scrapyard. Excellent! All Might cheered, clapping. Your deltas are singing. Sloppy, Granny critiqued. You hesitated. The spirit inside the machine laughed at you before you hit it. Izuku collapsed into the sand, panting. I can't please everyone. For the academic anomaly, school was another battlefield. As the months passed, Izuku's physical appearance changed. He grew leaner, wirier. The baby fat melted away, replaced by corded muscle that looked almost like steel cables under his skin. But his mind was changing too. The memories of Okarun were bleeding through more frequently. In science class, Midoriya, the teacher asked. Explain Newton's third law. Izuku stood up. He wasn't mumbling anymore. He wore his glasses, pushing them up with a confident, almost arrogant finger. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, Izuku stated. However, this law is flawed when applied to non-Euclidean spiritual spaces. For example, if a Sepoyan drone enters our atmosphere, it displaces not air, but probability. Therefore, the reaction is not physical force, but a localized curse event. The class stared. The teacher blinked. Midoriya, just the textbook answer, please. Right. Force equals mass times acceleration. Izuku sat down. Bakugo watched him from across the room. He didn't scream. He didn't explode. He was watching Izuku with a look of profound disturbance. He's not looking at the board, Bakugo thought. He's looking at the ceiling. And he's nodding. Izuku was indeed nodding. He was listening to Turbo Granny explain why the school's architecture was essentially a giant spirit funnel. See that corner? Granny whispered. Bad feng shui. That's why the math teacher is always bald. Stress spirits accumulate there. Makes sense, Izuku whispered back. The Cryptid of Dagoba, Month 7. The beach was half clean. It was night. All Might had gone home to rest his injury. Izuku was supposed to be sleeping, but the itch was there. The Okarun itch. There's something here. Granny whispered. Can you feel it? Izuku stood in the middle of a cleared patch of sand. The moonlight reflected off the ocean. I feel it, Izuku said. It's cold. Wet. He scanned the remaining piles of trash. There, nestled between a broken sofa and a pile of tires, was a shape. It looked like a child, but its limbs were too long, and its head was shaped like an inverted teardrop. A Flatwoods monster? Izuku gasped, pulling out his notebook. Here? In Japan? No. The silhouette is different, the creature hissed. It wasn't a biological animal. It was a conglomeration of sea sludge, plastic bags, and resentment. A minor yokai born from the pollution. It's a trash specter, Granny identified. Low level. But annoying. It wants to suffocate you, the creature lunged. It moved with surprising speed, a whip of wet plastic lashing out. Izuku didn't panic. He adjusted his glasses. Hero analysis, Izuku murmured. Pattern B, evasion. His legs lit up. The blue spiral energy of the turbo curse wrapped around his calves. But beneath the skin, the red glow of one for all hummed. The plastic whip snapped. Izuku wasn't there. He was standing on top of the pile of tires, 10 feet in the air. Too slow, Izuku said, channeling Okarun's cocky battle persona. If you want to catch me, You need to vibrate at a higher frequency. The specter shrieked and grew, pulling more trash into its body. It became a towering golem of garbage. Ooh, a big boy. Granny cackled. Rip it apart, Ken! I mean Izuku! Izuku took a deep breath. One for all, full cal 5%. It was painful. It felt like his bones were vibrating. But he held it. Turbo charge, 100%. Let's clean up this beach, Izuku said. He dropped. He ran around the golem. He moved so fast that he created a vacuum. The sand whipped up into a frenzy. To a normal observer, it would look like a small tornado had formed on the beach. The golem flailed, unable to track him. Spiral. Izuku chanted, running up the golem's arm. He reached ahead. He didn't punch. He placed his hand on the creature's core, a rusted car battery buried in the muck. Exorcism. He channeled the raw, chaotic energy of the turbo granny into the battery, overloading the spirit's anchor. Zap. The golem exploded. Not a fiery explosion, but a disassembly. The trash simply lost its cohesion and fell apart, raining down tires and plastic bottles. The spirit, a small dark wisp, shrieked and dissolved into the ether. Izuku landed in a superhero pose, dust settling around him. He stood up and dusted off his shoulder. Trash collection complete for Sector B, he said. Not bad, Granny admitted. You missed a spot on the left, though. Shut up, Granny. 6. The vestiges awake. That night, Izuku dreamed. He was in the void. But it wasn't the usual dark tunnel. It was a library. Or a museum. 7 chairs sat in a circle. Izuku stood in the middle. He is, distinct, a voice said. Izuku turned. A man with white hair and a sickly demeanor sat in the largest chair. Yoichi Shigaraki. The first user. First. Izuku gasped. Hello, Ninth, Yoichi smiled gently. We have been watching. You are doing well with the physical vessel. But, Yoichi looked nervously to the side. Sitting on the armrest of the second user's chair, a man with spiky hair and a scar, was the Turbo Granny. She was grooming her tail. Can you please ask your pet to stop scratching the furniture? The second user grumbled. It's not furniture, it's a metaphysical construct of your regret, Granny retorted. And it's very scratchable, Yoichi sighed. The symbiosis is unprecedented. One for all is a power that stores strength. Your friend here stores momentum and kinetic intent. Is it safe? Izuku asked. Am I breaking the quirk? No, Yoichi said. You are evolving it. But be warned, Ninth. The stronger you get, the more attention you will attract. One for all attracts evil. But your other power, it attracts the strange. The dream shifted. Suddenly Izuku wasn't in the library. He was running. He was running through a construction site in space. And ahead of him, running away, was a girl. She had brown hair and pigtails. She wore a school uniform that didn't match Yue's. Momo! Okarun's voice screamed from Izuku's throat. The girl turned. She smiled. But she was fading. Find me, she whispered. The aliens are coming. 7. The morning of the exam, Izuku woke up with a start. He was sweating. Momo, he whispered. The name made his chest ache with a longing he didn't fully understand. It was Okarun's love, Okarun's regret. Stop being emo, Granny said, waking up in his head. Today is the big day. The entrance exam. Time to show these biological wannabes what a real curse looks like. Izuku got out of bed. He looked in the mirror. 10 months ago, he was a twig. Now, he was a weapon. His eyes had a sharpness to them. He adjusted his glasses. He put on his middle school uniform. It felt tight around the shoulders. He walked to the beach one last time. All Might was waiting. He was in his buff form, standing atop a pristine, sparkling beach. The sunrise painted the ocean gold. Oh my goodness! All Might bellowed. Look at this. It is spotless, Izuku smiled. We did it. You did it! All Might laughed. You have mastered the vessel. You are ready to inherit the full torch. Well, maybe 5% of the torch to start with. All Might placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. Young Midoriya. Go to Yue, show them that you are here. Izuku nodded. He clenched his fist. I'll do my best. And if you fail, Granny added. I'm taking over your body and we're becoming a villain duo. Just saying. Plan B, not helping. 8. The gates of UA. The gates of UA High stood towering and majestic. Students swarmed the entrance, a colorful parade of mutations and excitement. Izuku stood at the gate. He took a deep breath. Serpoian drone at 12 o'clock, his analysis brain noted instantly. He looked up. A pigeon was sitting on the archway. To anyone else, a bird. To Izuku, it had a metallic sheen and a camera lens for an eye. They're watching, Izuku muttered. Out of my way, Deku. Bakugo walked past him. He didn't shove Izuku this time. He just walked with a tense, angry stride. Good luck, Kaken, Izuku said. Bakugo paused. He looked back over his shoulder. Don't die, Bakugo grunted. And don't summon any demons. No promises, Izuku smiled weakly. As he walked forward, distracted by the drone pigeon, he tripped. His foot caught on the pavement. Here comes the faceplant, he thought. Gravity is a harsh mistress. He braced for impact. But he didn't fall. He floated. Are you okay? A bubbly voice. Izuku looked up. A girl with a round face, rosy cheeks, and brown bobbed hair was holding her hand out. She had touched him, and he was drifting inches off the ground. I stopped you with my quirk. She smiled brightly. It's bad luck to fall on the exam day, right? Izuku stared at her. His heart stopped. Okarun's memories slammed into him like a truck. Brown hair. The smile. The kindness. Momo? Izuku whispered. Huh? The girl tilted her head. I'm Ochako. Ochako Uraraka. She released him, and he landed softly. Oh. Sorry. Izuku stammered, his face turning beet red. The Okarun-style social anxiety kicked in at Mach 10. Gravity. Wow. Science. Aliens. Aliens? Uraraka blinked. She laughed. You're funny. Well, let's do our best. She waved and walked away. Izuku stood there, frozen. It's not her, Granny said gently. For once, her voice wasn't mocking. The soul is different. This one is simpler. Sweeter. Momo was a firecracker. I know, Izuku said, watching Uraraka go. But she's nice. She's a gravity user. Granny noted. Do you know what happens when you combine super speed with zero gravity? Izuku grinned. The sadness faded, replaced by tactical excitement. We fly. Exactly. Now get in there and pass this test. I'm bored. Izuku Midoriya walked through the gates of UA High. He carried the power of the greatest hero, the curse of the fastest yokai, and the memories of a boy who loved the occult. The written exam was first. Question 1, English. Question 2, Math. Question 3, Essay describe the ethical implications of vigilantism. Izuku wrote. Vigilantism is legally defined by quirk usage. However, if one fights threats that the law does not acknowledge, i.e., cryptids, aliens, spirits, does the law apply? Furthermore, is a curse a quirk? Discuss. He erased it. Stick to the script, Izuku. He rewrote the answer citing All Might. But in the margins, he doodled a turbo granny eating a Serpoian. The real test was about to begin. The practical exam. The battle center. Izuku stood in the crowd of examinees, wearing his green tracksuit. He adjusted his glasses. Ready, partner? Rev the engine, kid, the buzzer sounded. Start. Present Mike screamed. Everyone hesitated. Izuku didn't. Boom. A cloud of dust was the only thing left where Izuku Midoriya had been standing. He was already inside the city. The written test, a ghost in the Scantron. The silence of the lecture hall was absolute, broken only by the synchronized scratching of graphite against paper. It was a sound that usually induced anxiety in teenagers, the sound of futures being written and erased in real time. But for Izuku Midoriya, the sound was different. To his heightened senses, the scratching sounded like 1,000 tiny beetles skittering across dry leaves. He sat in row 4, seat 12. He adjusted his glasses, frames that served no optical purpose but acted as a psychological barrier between the human world and the other world. Question 14. Calculate the trajectory of a projectile with a mass of 5 kilograms launched at a 45-degree angle with an initial velocity of... Izuku stared at the paper. His hand hovered. Boring. A voice yawned inside his skull. It was the Turbo Granny, currently manifesting as a spectral heaviness at the base of his neck. The answer is C. But the question is flawed. It doesn't account for wind resistance caused by spiritual turbulence. Quiet, Granny, Izuku mumbled under his breath, circling C. This is physics, not metaphysics. Physics is just magic that hasn't learned how to have fun yet, she retorted. Look at the guy 3 rows ahead. He's sweating so much he's creating a micro-humidifier. A tiny water imp is licking the sweat off his neck. Izuku forced his eyes not to look. Focus on the test. Focus on Okarun's memory. He closed his eyes for a second, letting the persona of Ken Takakura surface. In his past life, Okarun hadn't been a top-tier academic genius, but he had been obsessively detail-oriented. He devoured books on the occult, conspiracy theories, and fringe science. That obsessive nature, when applied to standard curriculum, was devastatingly effective. Izuku looked at the biology section. Question 30. Describe the function of the mitochondria. Izuku wrote, the powerhouse of the cell. Then he erased it. He wrote, the biological battery that converts nutrients into ADP. However, recent studies on quark factors suggest mitochondria also act as a grounding rod for bioelectric energy fields. He breezed through the test. While other students were agonizing over equations, Izuku was analyzing the structural integrity of the exam paper itself. His mind was a dual-core processor, one core running standard human logic, the other processing the constant stream of supernatural data that the Turbo Granny fed him. By the time the bell rang, Izuku had finished 20 minutes early. He sat staring at the ceiling, watching a small, translucent jellyfish float through the fluorescent lights. A wanderer, Izuku noted mentally. Harmless. Feeds on anxiety. It's having a feast today. Time is up. Pencils down. Present Mick's voice boomed over the intercom. Izuku exhaled. Step 1 complete. He hadn't used a single drop of One for All, nor a single burst of turbo speed. He had just been a nerd, and according to the whispers he heard as he exited the hall, being a nerd was the easy part. 2. The orientation and the interruption. The auditorium was vast, a cavernous space designed to hold the egos of thousands of aspiring heroes. Izuku sat huddled in his seat, his notebook Hero Analysis number 13 open on his lap. Welcome to the live show. Present Mike screamed from the stage, his voice amplified by his quirk to ear-shattering levels. Everybody say hey. Silence. Tough crowd. Granny cackled. I like them. They smell like fear. All right, keeping it cool. I dig it. Present Mike continued unfazed. He pointed to the massive screen behind him. I'm here to drop the beats on the practical exam. Are you ready? As Present Mike began to explain the point system, robots labeled 1, 2, and 3 points corresponding to their difficulty, Izuku began to mutter. It was a habit he couldn't break, amplified by the fact that he was now often holding a conversation with a passenger in his head. Robots, Izuku whispered, scribbling furiously. Standard mechanids. If they run on batteries, they have electromagnetic fields. If I charge my aura with static, I might be able to disrupt their sensors without hitting them. But One for All provides physical enhancement. If I combine the static with a kinetic impact. Or, Granny suggested, we just run really fast and trip them. It's funnier. Tripping is valid, Izuku muttered. But their center of gravity is likely low. I need to target the axles. Excuse me. A hand shot up in the middle of the auditorium. A spotlight swung over, illuminating a tall boy with glasses and a severe haircut. Tenya Ida? Sir! Ida shouted, pointing a rigid hand at the screen. The handout clearly lists 4 types of villains. If this is a misprint, it is a shameful error for a prestigious school like UA. We are here to be molded into exemplary heroes. He then whipped around, his finger pointing accusingly at Izuku. And you! The curly-haired one. Izuku froze. Me? You've been muttering this entire time. It's distracting. If you're here on a sightseeing trip to look for ghosts, or whatever you're mumbling about, you should leave immediately. The auditorium giggled. Izuku shrank into his seat, his face burning. Let me at him. Granny hissed. I'll shave his eyebrows off before he can blink. No, Granny, Izuku whispered internally. He's right. I'm being creepy. Okay, calm down, examinee 7111. Present Mike waved his hands. The fourth robot is indeed a 0-pointer. Think of it as a hurdle. It's huge, it's nasty, and it's worth absolutely nothing. It's an obstacle to avoid. I recommend running away. Running away, Izuku repeated. We don't run away, Granny growled. We run through. Running away sounds good, Izuku decided. I don't want to fight a building. 3. Battle Center B. The calm before the storm. The bus ride to Battle Center B was tense. Izuku stood outside the massive gates of the urban simulation city. It was a marvel of engineering, a sprawling metropolis of concrete and glass, built solely to be destroyed. Izuku wore a green tracksuit he had bought online. It was sleek, aerodynamic, and according to the product description, spiritually neutral. He adjusted his red sneakers. He looked around. The other examinees were stretching, checking their gear, psyching themselves up. Some had mutations, claws, wings, extra limbs. Others had emitter types, sparks flying from their fingers. Izuku felt naked. He had one for all, a power that could shatter the sky. He had Turbo Granny, a curse that could outrun sound. But he was terrified to use either. If I use one for all at 100%, I explode, he reminded himself. All Might said my body can handle about 5% right now without breaking. But 5% of infinity is hard to calculate under pressure, and if I use Turbo Granny. He looked at his reflection in the glass of the gatehouse. For a second, he saw the red mask. The sharp teeth. People will think I'm a villain. Hey, Izuku jumped. It was the nice girl from the entrance. Ochako Uraraka. She was wearing a tight pink tracksuit and looked nervous. You're the shaking boy, she said. Vibrations. Izuku stammered. Just keeping the muscles warm. Right, she smiled weakly. Well, good luck. Let's do our best. She walked away. Izuku watched her go. She's doomed, Granny noted. She's too soft. This city is going to chew her up. She has a gravity quirk, Izuku argued. She'll be fine. Start. Present Mick's voice blasted from a tower. What are you waiting for? There are no countdowns in real battles. Go! 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 The crowd surged forward. It was a stampede. Izuku was left standing at the gate for a split second, his okarun brain analyzing the bottleneck. Move, you idiot! Granny screamed, shocking his nervous system. Izuku jolted. He ran. But he ran normally. No turbo. No one for all. Just Izuku Midoriya, the boy who cleaned a beach. He was fast. Faster than the average middle schooler thanks to his training. But compared to the kids with speed quirks or propulsion engines, he was lagging. By the time he reached the main plaza, it was a war zone. Crash. A 1-pointer was smashed by a boy with a laser navel. A 2-pointer was kicked through a wall by Ida. A 3-pointer was dissolved by a girl with acid. Points. That's 28 for me. 45. Izuku stood in the middle of the street, panic rising in his throat. Every time he spotted a robot, someone else destroyed it before he could get there. Target acquired, a mechanical voice droned. A 1-pointer rolled around the corner, its single red eye locking onto Izuku. Okay, Izuku breathed. Just one. I can do this. He clenched his fist. One for all, 5%. He felt the hum. The red lines appeared on his skin. Use the curse, Izuku, Granny urged. Just a little bit. This tinkin is slow. No. I can't control the output, Izuku charged. He aimed a punch, but before he could connect, a blur of motion swept past him. Mine! A student with a tail smashed the robot's head with a martial arts strike. The robot collapsed. Sorry, buddy. You gotta be quicker than that. Izuku stood there, fist extended, hitting nothing but air. 0, he whispered. I have 0 points. This is embarrassing. Granny groaned. I'm haunting a loser. I should have stuck with the doctor. Time was ticking away. 5 minutes left. 4. Izuku ran down alleys, looking for scraps. Nothing. The other students were efficient killing machines. He was just a boy in a tracksuit running laps. I'm going to fail, Izuku panted, leaning against a lamp post. All Might gave me his hair, and I'm going to fail. Stop whining, Granny snapped. Listen, Izuku froze. Listen to what? The ground. It's crying, for the god in the machine. The vibration started as a hum in the soles of his shoes. Then, the pebbles on the street began to dance. Then, the sun was blocked out. Boom, boom. It came from the center of the city. A shadow so large it plunged 3 city blocks into darkness. The 0-pointer. It wasn't just a robot. It was a skyscraper on treads. Its green chassis was the size of a stadium. Its hands were excavators capable of crushing tanks. But to Izuku it was worse. As the massive machine rose, tearing through the pavement, Izuku's spirit sight flared. He saw the energy surrounding it. The sheer displacement of air and matter was creating a vacuum that sucked in minor spirits. The robot was covered in a haze of static interference. It's an abomination, Izuku whispered. The other students stopped fighting. They looked up, mouths open. That's big. Run! It's the 0-pointer. Forget the points. Survival first. The stampede reversed. The students fled, pushing past Izuku, screaming, "Move, kid! Don't stand there!" Someone yelled, shoving Izuku aside. Izuku fell to his knees. The dust kicked up by the retreating crowd choked him. Run, his instincts screamed. Run away. You have 0 points. If you die here you fail anyway. He scrambled to get up, turning his back on the monster. "Ow wow!" A cry. Faint buried under the sound of crushing concrete. Izuku stopped. "Don't look back," Granny warned. "It's not your problem." Survival of the fittest. Izuku turned his head. In the middle of the ruined street, trapped under a slab of concrete, lay Ochako Uraraka. She was struggling, her face pale with pain. The 0-pointer was looming over her, its massive tread grinding the debris into dust. It was 30 seconds away from crushing her. The other students were gone. The teachers were watching from cameras miles away. There was no All Might here. "She's going to die," Izuku said. The realization was cold, clinical. "Yeah, probably," Granny said. "Unless," Izuku looked at his hands. He looked at the robot. "Unless I stop being Izuku Midoriya," he whispered. He stood up. He adjusted his glasses. He took a deep breath, inhaling the dust and the fear. "Granny," Izuku said, his voice changing. The tremble was gone, replaced by the flat, manic tone of Ken Takakura. "Let's get weird." Finally, the cat statue in his mind grinned, revealing a mouth full of needles. "Open the gate." The turbo transformation. It didn't happen like a magical girl transformation. It was violent. Izuku screamed as the energy ripped through him. One for all, full call 8%. Turbo mode, 100%. The air around Izuku exploded outward. The dust swirling around him was pushed back by a shockwave of spiritual pressure. His green tracksuit rippled as if caught in a hurricane. His hair, usually a messy mop of green curls, stood straight up, defying gravity, the tips bleaching a spectral white. But the face was the anomaly. A mask of red energy clamped over his jaw and nose. It had a long, beak-like nose and a jagged, grinning mouth. His eyes lost their pupils, replaced by spinning, hypnotic spirals of blue and gold. He wasn't a boy anymore. He was a vessel. "Hey! Big guy!" The voice was distorted, a harmonic layering of a teenage boy and an ancient crone. The 0-pointer ignored him. It raised a massive fist to smash the rubble where Uraraka lay. Izuku crouched. The concrete beneath his sneakers cracked, spiderwebbing out for 10 feet. "Granny, shift gears." Upshifting to supersonic. "Hold your lunch." Bang. Izuku disappeared. He didn't run towards the robot. He ran up the falling debris. To Uraraka, looking up through tear-filled eyes, it looked like a streak of red lightning. One moment, the boy was on the ground. The next, he was a blur zigzagging through the air, kicking off falling rocks, shards of glass, and the very air pressure itself. The sound barrier broke. Crack boom. Windows in the surrounding buildings shattered. Izuku reached the robot's arm. He didn't stop. He ran vertically up the metal limb, his feet glowing with blue fire. The G-force pressed against him, trying to crush his organs, but the mantle of One for All held his body together like a diamond cage. Target the neck! Granny shrieked in his ear. Sever the connection! I know! Izuku roared. He reached the shoulder of the Titan. He was hundreds of feet in the air. The wind whipped at his mask. He leaped. He spun in the air, a tight, controlled rotation that gathered kinetic energy. Turbo. He channeled everything. Every ounce of frustration. Every memory of being called useless. Every drop of fear. Spiral. He extended his leg. The red energy of the mask flared, enveloping his entire body in a missile of light. Crash! He slammed his heel into the neck joint of the 0-pointer. It wasn't a punch. It was a guillotine. The impact was deafening. Metal shrieked as it was torn apart. The sheer velocity of the kick, combined with the density of One for All, acted like a kinetic penetrator. The robot's head, a mass of steel the size of a bus, was sheared clean off. It flew backwards, tumbling through the air, before crashing into a building with an earth-shaking thud. The body of the robot froze. Sparks showered down like fireworks. Then, slowly, the massive machine began to tilt backward, defeated. 6. The fall and the float. Silence returned to the battlefield, save for the groaning of twisted metal. High in the air, the red mask shattered. The white tips of Izuku's hair faded back to green. Oh, Izuku realized, looking down. Gravity. He was falling. Fast. His legs were dead. The backlash of using turbo at that speed, even with One for All, had shredded his stamina. His muscles felt like jelly. His bones ached with a deep, marrow-piercing throb. I'm out of juice. Granny yawned in his head. Good luck with the landing. Try to aim for something soft. Like a bush. Or that kid with the sticky balls. Granny! Izuku screamed, flailing his arms. The ground rushed up to meet him. I'm going to die. I saved her, but I'm going to be a splat on the pavement. He squeezed his eyes shut. Slap. A stinging pain on his cheek. He stopped. His stomach lurched as his momentum was zeroed out instantly. He opened his eyes. He was floating 3 inches above the ground. Release. He dropped the final 3 inches, landing in a heap. Beside him, Ochako Uraraka was on her hands and knees, retching. She had slapped him as he fell, using her quirk at the last second. You! She wheezed, wiping her mouth. You were flying. Izuku tried to move. He couldn't. He just lay there, staring at the sky where the headless robot stood as a monument to his madness. 1 minute left. Present Mike announced, his voice sounding subdued for the first time. Other students began to emerge from the alleys. They gathered around, keeping a safe distance. Did you see that? He took out the 0-pointer. With 1 hit? Was that a quirk? He looked like a demon. Is he a villain? Ida pushed through the crowd. He looked at the destroyed robot, then at the broken boy on the ground. His glasses were askew. He jumped to save her, Ida thought, his hands shaking. While I ran away to preserve my score, he jumped. He had no points. He risked everything. Time's up, the siren wailed. The exam was over. 7. The diagnosis of the cursed. Okay, move aside. Nothing to see here, just a little excessive destruction. A small, elderly woman in a nurse's outfit hobbled through the crowd. Recovery girl. She pushed past Ida and knelt beside Izuku. Oh dear, she tooted. You really overdid it, Sonny. She touched his forehead. Her lips extended for a kiss. Smooch. Vitality flooded Izuku's body. The bruises faded. The muscle tears knitted together. But the exhaustion remained. Spiritual exhaustion couldn't be healed with a kiss. Recovery girl pulled back, frowning. She looked at her hand. It was trembling slightly. Strange, she murmured. What is it? Ida asked, concerned. His energy, Recovery girl whispered, looking at Izuku with narrowed eyes. Usually, when I heal someone, I feel their life force warmth. But this boy, she tapped her cane on the ground, he feels cold. Like a draft in an old house. And I could have sworn I heard a cat hissing when I touched him. Izuku groaned, sitting up. He adjusted his glasses, which were miraculously unbroken. Did I pass? He croaked. You got 0 points, kid, a student with spiky red hair, Kirishima said gently. But that was the manliest thing I've ever seen. Izuku put his head in his hands. 0 points. We looked cool though, Granny consoled him. And we decapitated a giant robot. That's got to be worth at least a participation trophy. 8. The teacher's lounge. In a dark room lined with screens, the judges sat in silence. Well, a voice piped up. It was Nizu, the Chimera principal. He was rewinding the footage of the kick. That was unexpected. He has 0 combat points, Midnight pointed out, tapping her fan on the desk. But the rescue points, surely that qualifies? It's not just the rescue, Aizawa, Eraserhead, grumbled from the corner, his eyes glued to the screen. Look at his movement. He paused the video frame by frame. Here. Before he jumps. His posture changes. His muscle density shifts. Aizawa zoomed in on Izuku's face. The mask was visible, a blur of red energy. That's not a transformation quirk, Aizawa muttered. Or at least, not a biological one. I tried to erase it for a split second when he ran past my camera. The energy didn't dissipate. It flickered, but it stayed. What does that mean? All Might asked, trying to sound innocent, though he was sweating buckets. It means, Aizawa said, narrowing his eyes, that whatever powers that boy, it operates on a different set of rules than we're used to. It's irrational. Nizu chuckled, sipping his tea. Irrational or not, he saved the girl. And he destroyed the obstacle. In a world of heroes, results matter. Nizu stamped a paper. Izuku Midoriya. Accepted. 9. The aftermath. Izuku walked out of the UA gates an hour later. He limped slightly. He stopped at the spot where he had tripped earlier. He looked back at the school. I failed, Granny, he whispered. You didn't fail, the voice replied. You made an impression. And besides, did you see the look on that glasses kid's face? Priceless. I have 0 points. Points are arbitrary. Social constructs. You know what's real? The fact that you just roundhouse kicked a skyscraper. Now let's go home. I want to watch that show about the crop circles. And buy me some tuna, the expensive kind. Izuku smiled, a tired, broken smile. Okay, Granny. Tuna it is. As he walked away, high above on the roof of the main building, a Serpoian drone pigeon cooed, recording the unique energy signature of the boy who ran faster than sound.